Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started for tonight's City of Little Rock Planning Commission meeting for July 8th, 2021. If we can go ahead and start off with a roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Here.
Commissioner Benton?
Here.
Commissioner Brooks? Chairman Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Hart?
Here.
Commissioner Haynes?
No connect.
Vice Chair Ramon?
Present.
Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Vickers?
Present.
And Commissioner Vogel?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, if we could, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? And if so, we'll take a motion.
There are no minutes from the
Last meeting? Okay. No minutes, then we will move forward into our consent agenda.
Following is a consent agenda for the Little Rock Planning Commission, July 8th, 2021. These are the items on consent approval. Item number 2, file number LU 2021-1902, a land use plan amendment for mixed office and commercial to commercial in the Chenal Planning District at the southeast corner of Kirk Road and Wellington Hills Road. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request to amend the land use plan designation at the subject site from MOC to C. 2.1 Z4807R, rezoning from PCD to C3, southeast corner of Kirk Road and Wellington Hills Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested C3 rezoning. Item number 4, Z6815A, Levy Concrete Plant, PDI, 8806 Mayville Pike. Staff recommends approval of the requested PDI zoning subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D and F and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Item number 5, Z8576A, Avalani Enterprises PCD, 17524 Canis Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested PCD zoning subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D and F and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Staff also requires that the property be annexed prior to any permits being issued for site development. Item number 6, Z9407A, Village at the Gateway Phase 8, PRD, west end of Big Rock Avenue, south of Alexander Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested PRD zoning, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Item number 7, Z9407B, Village at the Gateway Phase 9, PRD, south side of Alexander Road, immediately east of 13103 Alexander Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested PRD zoning subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Item number 10, Z9593, Brody Creek, Lot 127, revised PRD, 44 Deerberry Forest Circle. Staff recommends approval of the requested revised PRD for Lot 127 Brody Creek subdivision, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D and E and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Item number 11, LU 2021-1102, land use plan amendment from mixed use to commercial in the I-430 planning district located between Interstate 430 and Shackelford Pass, just north of West 36th Street. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request to amend the land use plan designation at the subject site from MX to C with a PKOS designation remaining where the floodway is present. In addition, upon approval of the zoning request by the Board of Directors, a review of the land use plan should be conducted in the general area of the application. Item 11.1, Z9594, rezoning from R2 to C4, 3336 Shackelford Pass. Staff recommends approval of the requested C4 rezoning. Item 13, LU 2021-1801, the land use plan amendment from residential low to commercial in the Ellis Mountain Planning District on the north side of Canis Road, approximately 2.5 miles northwest of Kirby Road. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request to amend the future land use plan by amending the designation of the subject site from RL to C. Upon approval by the Little Rock Board of Directors of this amendment, staff recommends review of the land use plan in this general area of this amendment. Item 13.1, Z 9596, a rezoning from R2 to C3, 14300 Canis Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested C3 rezoning. And item 14, Z 9597, Pier POD, 1850 South Ringo Street, southwest corner of South Ringo Street and Wright Avenue. Staff recommends approval of the requested POD zoning subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. That concludes the consent agenda.
Okay, with those read, any questions, commissioners? Hearing no questions, can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we, go ahead.
Okay, we've got a motion. How about a second?
Second.
And a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Barry,
Aye.
Benton,
Yes.
Brooks, Chairman Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Ramon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel.
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Okay. With that, if you're in the audience here and the item that you were here to hear has been read, you're free to go, or you're welcome to stay until the end of the meeting. Thank you. Okay, if we can move into our regular agenda.
Okay. Just to review what's on regular agenda, we have items 1, 3, 8, 9 and 9.1, and 12.
Mr. Chair, before he gets started with the reading, I believe it's still part of our bylaws by my reckoning. If we have 8 or less, the applicant does have the opportunity to defer. Is that still an operative practice, Jamie?
Pull that up real quick. Mr. Barry,
What's that?
let me pull that up real quick. I can't
Okay.
remember if it was
Well, I know we changed the bylaws, and I don't recall, that was a common practice. I don't know if it was defined in the bylaw or not.
Yeah, I don't remember right off.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Berry.
Give me a second.
During this brief intermission, Commissioner Vickers, if you want to sing that song you've been practicing.
For the commissioners, chair, and everyone in the room, that section on deferrals says, is A, no application which has been docketed for public hearing and advertised for such hearing shall be deferred except for cause and with a written request from the applicant 5 working days prior to the public hearing, except in the event that 8 commissioners or less are in attendance at the hearing. The commissioners will give the applicant an option to be heard or deferred at the applicant's request. Any deferral in this case shall be as from the applicant.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, with that, we go ahead into the consent agenda.
The first item on the regular agenda is item number 1, file number Z 4685B. This is the Pilgrim Valley Baptist Church conditional use permit located at 1808 through 1820 Marshall Street. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of a 1-story, 7,350 square foot multipurpose building on the property located at 1808 to 1812 Marshall Street to serve the Pilgrim Valley Baptist Church, which is located on the adjacent property at 1821 Wolf Street. The primary use of the facility will be for church and community-related activities. The multipurpose building will be able to seat up to 288 people at tables. The proposed project also includes a small one-story storage building, 400 square feet on the east side of the proposed multipurpose building. The applicant noted that the building materials for the proposed activity building would be a mixture of pre-engineered metal, rib siding, and brick, and the storage building would be pre-engineered metal rib siding. Both proposed buildings will be well under the 35-foot maximum height allowed in the R3 and R4 zoning districts. The proposed multi-purpose building will have a ridge height of approximately 23.5 feet above the finished floor, and the proposed storage building will have a ridge height of approximately 13.5 feet. The applicant is requesting one variance with the proposed development. The proposed multipurpose building will be located 19 feet, 7¼ inches from the rear or west property line. Sections 36-255D3 and 256D3 require minimum rear building setbacks of 25 feet. Staff supports the variance request to allow reduced rear setback. The structures will comply with all other building requirements. The applicant is also proposing to construct a 21 new paved parking spaces on the south side of the building. One access drive from Marshall Street will serve the proposed parking lot. The proposed new parking will also tie into the existing church parking to the west. The applicant notes that the new development will comply with the city's minimum landscape and buffer requirements. The 6-foot tall opaque fence will be placed along the north property line where adjacent to residential property. All site lighting will be low level and directed away from adjacent properties. The applicant notes that there'll be no dumpster on the site and all trash will be collected in regular and recycled trash containers for collection by the city. Any signage on the site must comply with section 36553 of the code. These are signs allowed in office zones. The applicant provided responses and additional information to all issues raised during staff's review of the application, and to staff's knowledge, there are no outstanding issues. Staff is supportive of the requested conditional use permit to allow development of a multi-purpose building and associated parking to serve the existing Pilgrim Valley Baptist Church facilities. Staff views the request as reasonable. The proposed project should prove to be a quality infill development and reuse of vacant residential lots in this neighborhood just north of Wright Avenue. Staff believes the proposed development will have no adverse impact on the adjacent properties, and staff recommends approval of the requested CUP and associated setback variance subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, yeah, if you'd like to approach the podium and share with us a little bit about this particular project.
Hey, Mr. Chair, before he does that, can we can we get clarification just so everyone in the audience knows that, so you still have to get X number of votes for something to pass, right? So can we explain that to all of the applicants and all of those?
Correct. For the applicants present on the regular agenda, we do have 8 commissioners present, and to have an application approved, you have to get 6 positive votes.
Thank you.
Would you like me to proceed?
Yes, please. Okay, thank you.
My name is Ron Ross, and I'm an architect and agent for Pilgrim Valley Baptist Church. We'd like to represent them in presenting this conditional use permit to City of Little Rock. The church is very interested in promoting neighborhood and community activities for their community. They feel like this activity center will allow them to continue to reach out into the community, provide health clinics, educational opportunities, as far as learning for adults and children in the community. They felt very positive about presenting this activity center to the community, and we look forward to answering any questions that you or anyone else in the in this meeting may have. Hopefully, we can resolve any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I've got one card for comment, and like the name is Trey Kitchens. Okay, Ms. Kitchens, if you'd like to approach the podium and share with us your thoughts about this particular project.
If I take my mask off,
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's
make sure we follow the rules. Good afternoon. My name is Trey Kitchens. I'm a lawyer with the Brad Hendricks Law Firm. I represent the property owners at 2420 Marshall Street and 1622 Wright Avenue. Those are two contiguous pieces of property that are within the zone that received notice about this conditional use issue. The properties are owned by Mr. and Mrs. Burley and Willie Eason, Rodney Eason, and Jennifer Hill, my clients. The concern and objection that my clients have about the church expanding in this particular direction, in this particular way, is at this moment that property is leased to a gentleman named Lonnie Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins would have been here today, but he is presently in the hospital, and that's why I'm here representing this group. Mr. Jenkins has a liquor license which he has obtained from the state. It is the intention of both the owners of the land as well as Mr. Jenkins to develop a convenience store there that would sell beer and wine as pursuant to that license, or a larger project that would involve building a liquor store there, again, with the license that Mr. Jenkins already has. The church obviously moved a little quicker because we have not submitted that application yet, but the lease is already in place. Mr. Jenkins is already the leaseholder with the intention of developing that property. There sits a small building on the land now that is going to be demolished for the new property to be built. With the addition of the church, we feel that it might preclude us from developing the property in that manner, and that's why we are objecting to that conditional use permit. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, that's our position.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Please. Thank you.
Sir, it's 2420 Marshall Street, 1622 Wright Avenue. Those properties abut each other. And if I may, as the developer, I'm happy to give him my card and we can visit about the issue if he has any questions that I can provide for him.
Hey, Monty, this is Robbie Vogel. Can you use the cursor to point out the property the Mr. Kitchens is discussing? That's it. I think liquor stores have to be 1,000 feet away from the property line of churches.
And we understand the issue that we're going to be confronted going forward with the existing church there, but the expansion of the church is simply going to exacerbate the issue for us going forward. That's why we're objecting.
So the existing, oh, I'm sorry, Robbie.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand where the existing church is and where the future store is proposed.
I think the question is I think we probably have the same question. Does the existing church fall, I guess, within or under that 1,000-foot area currently?
I believe it does, sir, because the notice we received was within the 200 feet delineation. So when we got the notice, we understand we're within that already. The expansion is, again, it's simply going to exacerbate the problem. That's why my clients asked me to come and present this issue to y'all, especially since the property is already leased to someone with a permit that would have been here, but for his time in the hospital.
Chair, if I may for a second. Chair, if I may for a second, Commissioner Vogel brought up about the ABC. I just want to clarify. The city of Little Rock does not regulate the distances for the ABC. They are set. We are land use and zoning issues on there. But I do want to clarify that we do not regulate the distance that is by ABC. In saying that, the distance was correct, for that. It is 1,000 feet for it, and church or school buildings are included in that. And how they measure it to the property line, that is up to the ABC, not up to the city of Little Rock. just for clarification.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Director Collins.
Yeah, I have a question on this. So that helps me understand if it's a vacant property at the time, but it's owned by the church, is that still part of the measurement of the distance? I mean, the church is already there, right? So it already triggers that, not that we regulate it, it already runs afoul of 1,000.
May I speak to
What
that,
is it?
sir?
The church is actually adjacent to the property that, in question.
Does the church own the property, the subject property?
The property proposed along Marshall Street, the church does own it. And the existing church facilities are within the west half of the block, immediately adjacent.
So the church owns the property, that wouldn't preclude the church from using the property. So the other entity that abuts it is still going to have the same issue.
May I respond? I don't want to cut anybody off. We understand we're going to have to go to ABC. We're well aware of that, and we deal with ABC on various issues regularly. I understand that that's some bar we're going to have to chin in order to construct the facility, as well as get the applicable permits for that. It's that second step with additional church property there that, as I said earlier, it simply exacerbates it. It makes it more difficult for my clients to develop the property in the manner that they were wishing to go forward with. Again, we know we have to deal with the ABC. This was the issue that we were dealing with today, and if we are able to do so, we'll go forward with the ABC to get their permission to use the license that Mr. Jenkins already holds.
So again, for clarity, the church, the property that's being considered for construction, the church does own that property currently? And so, okay.
That's correct.
My question, okay.
And another good point is this is not a new church facility.
Right.
It's just the expansion of an
Expansion.
existing church.
If I can say this, I am extremely familiar with that church. The church I pastor is not very far from the neighborhood. And that neighborhood does desperately need anything to help with the young people in that community. I've known the pastor of that church for the last, well, it's a new pastor now, but the former pastor there for a long time. I'm totally in agreement with what they want to do for that community.
Appreciate those comments.
So, Mr. Chairman, one question. So what the objector is asking us to do is to deny the variance, which is just to, what is it for, for rear setback? Is that the only thing we're doing here?
The application before you is a conditional use permit for the expansion of the church facility. Part of that request is the variance for rear yard setback.
So maybe this is kind of going to what others have asked about, who owns and controls the property, but would they be able to do this construction without coming to the planning commission under any circumstance?
No, this is different from a plat. Remember at the last meeting, we talked about a plat with respect to variances. And if you wanted to deny a plat, you needed to deny the variance. This is totally different. This is a use issue. And you're reviewing whether or not this use is appropriate for this property. And the development plan with a variance attached to it is just part of the overall review.
If I can make one final comment, please. With respect to what the community is dealing with and what the community needs, one of the things that the Eastons and Miss Hill are very interested in is taking down the small structure that is on their property currently that is not being actively used and placing a business there that will provide jobs and revenue for the community to try to assist the community. So they're interested in developing and helping the community, as I'm sure the church is as well. The new structure will provide jobs that will help the community. I have nothing further if there are no further questions.
Okay.
I drove down Wrights Avenue today, and I think Mr. Jenkins has Braswell's package. It's definitely an opportunity to improve the building. I don't know what building has been leased in my mind, but certainly Braswell's package is a liquor store. It is not a convenience store. So there will be a minimum of 1,000-foot setback from a church. So
But let me just make sure I understand. So the use issue is whether the proposed use is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. What is the technical standard for whether the use should be approved?
Chairman Mon, or Commissioner Mon, I don't know if there's a technical standard for every use that's approved for the zoning, because it just depends on what the proposed use inside the underlying zoning.
Okay, but
For this
but
current
does
zoning, it's residential, I believe, right, Monty?
It's R3 and R4.
R3 and R4, so a compatible use, that's why it's a conditional use, can go in typically underneath that zoning. Churches, schools, they're typically uses that support the neighborhood or the surrounding areas. So that's why this is a conditional use, so it is compatible.
okay, but so just to make sure that when you do that evaluation, do you take into consideration things like the objector is stating, like a future project may not be able to happen because it will be too close to this proposed use, or is that completely irrelevant to your evaluation?
I would think that that would be too, I think that, no, I don't think that that would be proper because you're looking at something in the future and you're just kind of getting into guessing at that point. You have the application, you know what the applicant wants to do, whether or not the objector gets the ABC license, that's not within the city's control. Everything that the applicant needs to present to the commission to determine whether or not this is good for the community is before the commission. And that would be my legal opinion.
Okay, and based upon the staff's recommendation, it is consistent with, you know, like an approvable or proper conditional use permit.
In my legal opinion, yes.
Okay.
just something to consider. I know that's happened in the alcohol industry before is they've grandfathered in liquor stores that are closer in proximity to schools and churches if they've already been existing. It sounds like Braswell's has been existing. And anyway, just something to consider. Because there's an Islamic center across the street and a couple other community type places in the near vicinity. But anyway, like Jamie said, this is an ABC issue. I was just trying to bring up the fact that Braswell's package is the store.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Vogel. Would the applicant like to return to the podium? Any comments or responses to the comments presented?
Mr. Kitchens? The liquor store you're speaking of is on the northeast corner of the intersection of Marshall, excuse me, and Wright Avenue. Is that correct? And then any adjacent any property you're talking about is adjacent to that location. Is that correct? Oh, okay. I was just trying to get it straight in my mind. I understand the attorney's objection. I think this is a very worthwhile project for the church and for the community. I hope the planning commission will approve the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, if you'd like, go ahead and approach the podium and state your name.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Madre Hill. My wife is Jennifer Hill, one of the owners of the land. What is not really being said here is the development that we have in planning to bring forward. I have a business called Razor Clean. It's 14 different divisions. It powers almost 400 jobs that I was going to make that my headquarters. We have an agreement to build a liquor store on beside the headquarters, which would give us the financial support that we need to ensure potential growth throughout the community. With that being said, you're talking about 100 and something janitorial jobs that would be placed. You're talking about 100 and some lawn care jobs, 100 and some painters jobs. You're talking about 100 and some pool cleaner jobs. You're talking about all these jobs coming into one location to provide jobs throughout the community. That's the reason why I'm here today, is because of the potential growth of that location becoming our headquarters. We're still trying to decide right now if we're going to do this within the next 6 months, because our lease is up at the end of this year regarding 624 East 12th Street. And that's where we was headed to. That's our next location. Since it's been in the family for years, we was going to go ahead and develop that land. And the problem that we're having is if we take away one of the power sources that's been in that community, that has been, that become financial support for our company, that in turns around and provides over 400, 500 jobs. We even have a staffing company. We're unlike any other company, whereas we provide service for all service industries. You're talking about towing, you're talking about painting, you're talking about lawn care, you're talking about building services, you're talking about landscaping. All these different jobs would come into that community. Now, I'm not sure about the job ratio of that community, but I do know that it would be an fluctuation of jobs for that area. That's the reason why we're here. My father is a preacher. I understand the importance of church. So I have no problem with that. But I do understand the very importance of putting food on the table. And this is like any other job company that would be coming into that area. There is no other jobs that plan on coming into that area to provide jobs for that community. We are the only company right now with that big of a hole that can support and provide that many jobs for that area. So if you do that, then it changes the whole entire plan of what we have for the future, for the jobs, to put food on the table, to pay light bills, to pay electric bills, to provide a living, send kids to school. These are the type of impact that this decision would make today. Thank you.
Mr. Hill, if I could, just a quick question for you.
Sir.
So for clarity, again, I want to make sure, staff, you may want to correct me on this if I'm incorrect. This is not an issue of whether or not the construction and the development that you described could go forward. The issue, we don't have a competition for a plot of land. The concern, again, is that this could exacerbate a future decision that would allow the liquor store. Is that correct?
Yes, because the liquor store has been grandfathered in, it's there.
Right.
And we're planning on developing that part to include into our business that would provide other jobs. It would be a source of income for us.
I think we got, again, for clarity's sake, again, what we're looking at here today is not a competition between two plots of land that rendering your plan not able to go forward.
It could if ABC turns around and says, okay, what you currently have is grandfathered in, but any new structure will become a problem. And if they come over into that land, all of a sudden it can become an ABC issue for us.
Okay, no, I understood. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, again, so that's a future concern. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, seems to me without this application, he's going to have to go before the ABC anyhow, regardless. So this really is up to the purported job source. So I understand what you're saying about competing interests, but this really is going to be a matter before the ABC and for you to decide if you want to hang on to that permit or not.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing none,
Can I move that we accept the application with a conditional use permit and all the stipulations have been read?
okay, we have a motion. Do we
Second.
Have a second? Motion and second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Berry,
Aye.
Benton,
Yes.
Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Ramon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, the next item we have on the consent, or not consent, regular agenda that we've now moved to, I think it's item 3.
Number 3.
Okay.
Item 3, file number Z 5131A, Disciple Korean Church revised conditional use permit located at 800 Kirby Road. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of 3 new buildings within the existing Disciple Korean Church site at 800 Kirby Road. The proposed buildings will be located on the south side of the existing church building, with each proposed building containing 4 one-bedroom apartments to house visiting missionaries for stays ranging for several weeks to 4 months. The proposed buildings will be located over 48 feet from the south side property line and over 100 feet from all other property lines. The applicant intends to save all of the existing trees located between the proposed buildings and the front, rear, and side property lines. The buildings will have a height of 17 feet 3 inches from the finished floor elevation to the roof ridge line. All proposed building setbacks and heights will conform to ordinance requirements. The proposed building exteriors will be constructed using brick or stone, hardy horizontal siding, and board and batten siding. The roofs will contain asphalt shingles. The proposed apartments for visiting missionaries will utilize the existing parking on the church site, which will be sufficient to serve this use. New sidewalks will be constructed from the existing parking to the apartments. All site lighting will be low level and directed away from adjacent properties. Trash disposal will utilize the existing dumpster on the church site. The applicant is proposing no new signage with the requested conditional use permit. The applicant also notes that landscaping and buffer requirements will be complied with. The applicant also proposes to leave existing mature trees and dense understory vegetation. The applicant provided responses and additional information to all issues raised during staff's review of the application. To staff's knowledge, there are no outstanding issues. The applicant is requesting no variances with this proposed CUP. Staff is supportive of the requested CUP to add missionary housing to the existing church site at 800 Kirby Road. Staff views the request as reasonable. Staff believes the proposed small apartment buildings will be a quality addition to this church site. The applicant proposes the 12 one-bedroom apartment units to be used by church guests only. The apartments will never be rented out. Staff believes that expanding the church development to allow these 3 small apartment structures will have no adverse impact on the adjacent properties or the general area. And staff recommends approval of the requested CUP subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report.
Okay, let's see, is the applicant present for item number 3? You can approach the podium, state your name, and share with us about the project.
Terry Burris, architect. I'm representing Disciple Korean Church application. I've got Michael Choi here, a member of the church also.
Keep a little
Project-
closer to your microphone, please.
Sorry. This
Yeah,
project,
just couldn't
we
hear you.
believe, is a good example of how can meld uses and growth of a missionary program. The Disciple Korean Church is very strongly oriented towards their mission programs and allow them to facilitate that program and training for missionaries to go forth into the area. This allows them to stay on the site. They're here for short-term visits. We cited the proposed structures to the south and more to the east in order to preserve the existing stand of trees between the church and the residential areas. There's no additional parking required. We see it as a very quiet use and just ask for your support and consideration on our request.
Okay. Let's see, I've got one card with I think is it Jim McMains? Mr. McMains, if you'd like to approach the podiums, again, state your name and share with us your thoughts on this project.
The card was submitted more as a reservation for the opportunity to make a comment or objection. At the time, before the meeting started, I didn't have the sketch available to me or didn't know where to locate it. Now that I've seen it, at least what I'm looking at online, I don't have any objections. I do have a question. There's a detention area marked on the diagram. Maybe that's already there. I was curious about whether some additional.
We are required by city ordinance to provide detention for any new construction. So the area of the three structures is extremely small. All we are doing is holding that rainwater just to slow down what will naturally hide anyway. So very small. It's not going to be a mosquito pond. Really just going to be a very slight depression site, and we're not having to clear anything to position it. So.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments about this particular project?
I'd make a motion that we approve the applicant's application with all staff comments.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Got a motion second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Berry,
Aye.
Button,
Yes.
Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Ramon, Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great, thank you. At this time, if we could, I'd like to ask for a modification in our agenda. If we could go to the regular agenda items 9 and 9.1, the applicants are here, but they do have a conflict a little bit later this afternoon. So if that's okay with everyone, I'd like to ask that we go to items 9 and 9.1.
Okay, Mr. Malone will present item 9, then I will do 9.1, and you can discuss them simultaneously and then take a vote, separate vote on each item.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners, Walter Malone, Planning Staff. My presentation will be on the land use plan amendment. Currently the land use plan shows this property for residential mid-density, and the request is to change it to commercial. This part of Little Rock, most of the commercial uses and actually most of the uses in the immediate vicinity of this property were developed prior to annexation. Most of this area is currently zoned R2, and there are businesses on R2 property in this part of Little Rock. That is not unusual in Southwest Little Rock. Both Scott Hamilton Road and Baseline Road have been widened since annexation, so the road is closer to the structures, no matter what the use is, than when the area was annexed. So there has been that is a fairly significant change in the overall area. To the south at the intersection, Baseline and Scott Hamilton, There's a fair amount of commercial zoning and commercial uses structures that are at that location. Some of them are vacant, some of them are boarded up currently. There is R4 zoning in that location that is not developed. And there is a large amount of commercial that, which was at one time a shopping center with a grocery store at that intersection also, which is a good portion of that center is also vacant, as well as having vacant land in that area. Since there is no intersection of a major road with Scott Hamilton at the location where this is being asked for, we have a concern that by changing the land use plan to commercial in this area would encourage basically commercial on the entire roadway. And so we're not recommending support of this change. Land use plan.
Mr. Chair, item 9.1 is the rezoning request. A proposed rezoning from R2 to C4, file number Z9592, again located at 8519 Scott Hamilton Drive. Jorge and Daisy Vasquez, owners of the 0.664 acre property located at 8519 Scott Hamilton Drive, are requesting that the property be rezoned from R3 Single Family District to C4 Open Display District. The rezoning is proposed to allow development of a used auto dealership. The property is currently undeveloped. All the surrounding properties are zoned to R3 Single Family District. Single family residences are located south and east of the subject property. Undeveloped R3 zone property is located immediately to the north with a liquor store and a bar located just further north. A non-conforming mobile home park is located across Scott Hamilton Drive to the west, and a non-conforming auto sales lot is located to the southwest. Staff does not support the requested C4 zoning. Staff does not view the request as reasonable. As noted previously, all the surrounding and abutting properties are zoned R3, several of which contain residential uses. The liquor store to the north is the only commercial zone property between this property and the commercial zone properties along Interstate 30 further north. Staff does not believe the C4 zoning at this location will be a compatible use with the surrounding zoning and uses in this area, and therefore staff recommends denial of the requested C4 rezoning.
Okay, is the applicant present? If you'd like to approach the podium, state your name and share with us your thoughts on this particular project.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm not an attorney. I own McDaniel. Pastor George is who I'm just trying to help. I didn't sell him the property, so there's no money to me involved here. He purchased the property from Lifeline Missionary Baptist Church. He's from Honduras, but he is a U.S. citizen. He owns, he has a church that the Baptists have helped him with on Baseline Road. I have photos here. Very nice, very clean church. He owns the house next door, very well taken care of. And like I said, he purchased this lot not knowing that he had to go through the planning commission. His church is a small membership. He's doing this he works on cars and sells them to supplement his income. And that's the reason he purchased this little piece of property. I've got a photo of it on the phone. It was very deteriorated little building. And I've got a photo here of what it looks like now. And his church, what it looks like, his house. He didn't try to do anything illegal here, to go through anything to get it taken care of. He doesn't speak English as well. That's the reason I'm here to help him. We would appreciate, I have a photo of the used car lot across the street. It's junk. It's terrible. It's a shame what it looks like. And you can tell by the photos here, he's going to maintain it in an excellent shape. His cars are really good. He's a good man. We would appreciate your concern here and to help him, please, with this. We know about the used car lots, that they don't want them in Southwest Little Rock. And I know you can't get rid of the junk across the street, but his won't look that way. It will be maintained, it will be taken care of. The cars will be all lined up, very nice cars, not junk cars. If y'all pass all those photos around, you'll see the little building, and I have on my phone, or my phone over, but I have what it looked like before. Lifeline Baptist Church has had this small lot for I think 30 years, and nothing's ever been done to it. It was all grown up. The little building on it was just terrible. Yes, go ahead, Pastor Paul.
My name is Jorge Vasquez, and I am not speak very good English, but I be here for the last 13 years. We coming here with a worker visa, and later on we get a resident. And 2 or 3 years ago, we be in citizenship. I would like to explain our purpose for that, but I prefer my son. He can translate it for me, and he can maybe you can understood better.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jorge Vasquez, or George, and I speak a little bit better than English than him, but not much. So I hope you guys can understand me.
Pues sabemos que Dios nos ha llamado a venir y con diferentes personas.
So we know that God has called us to come and share the gospel with different people.
Y llegamos hace unos 13 años para iniciar Iglesia Bautista El Faro.
And we came here 13 years ago to start Iglesia Bautista El Faro, which is located in front of the post office right there on Baseline.
Y, venimos con la Iglesia, la Asociación Bautista de América.
And we came with the association, the BMA of America,
Y como misioneros.
as missionaries.
Pero los misioneros solo sostienen por 10 años.
But they only maintain their missionaries for a period of 10 years.
Y gracias a Dios tenemos familias de diferentes países allí en nuestra iglesia.
And by the grace of God, we have families from different countries that are at our church.
Y estas familias, cuando ya los hombres se han convertido a Cristo, han cambiado totalmente su familia.
And these families, when they come to our church and the fathers become Christians, they completely change the outlook of life. And our main goal is to win families for Christ.
Y la última semana tuvimos la escuela bíblica de vacaciones.
And last week we had a vacation Bible school with 52 kids.
Y muchos de esos niños son nuevos y ellos han podido testificar de cómo sus familias han cambiado. Han venido a Cristo.
And most of the kids are new, and then they can also witness how their families have changed because of their family becoming believers.
Y me pudiera ir de misionero a otro lugar,
And I could leave to be a missionary to somewhere else,
pero no quiero dejar Baseline.
but I don't want to leave the Baseline Southwest area of Little Rock.
Pero al mismo tiempo hemos perdido
But at the same time, we have lost our economic support,
y la iglesia es pequeña
and the church is small.
y esa es la idea de tener este pequeño dealer
And that's the main reason why we want to have this small dealership,
para ayudarme como familia, para seguir apoyando a mi familia
so it can help me, so I can help sustain my family,
y también apoyar la iglesia.
but I can also help be still part of the church.
Gente dice, en Baseline es terrible,
And a lot of people would say Baseline, it's a terrible place,
pero nosotros amamos esa familia
but we know that we love those families, we love the community,
y ellos han cambiado.
and we've seen the change in their lives.
Y por supuesto, pequeño dealer,
And of course, if we have a small dealer,
podemos proveer un buen vehículo para cualquiera de las
we can provide a good vehicle, reliable vehicle for anyone in the community,
y seguir desarrollando la comunidad.
and keep the community developed.
Estamos muy contentos de ver en los últimos 10 años cambios en el Southwest.
We are very pleased to see all the changes that have been coming through to the Southwest area of Little Rock,
Y quisiéramos ver cosas mejores.
and we would like to see for it to keep improving and better things
Les
coming.
prometo que ese pequeño dealer
I promise that small dealership,
va a ser, vamos a vender un buen producto,
we're gonna sell a good product,
vamos a apoyar la comunidad
we're gonna help the community,
y vamos a desarrollar
and we're gonna develop,
y proveer
and we're gonna try to provide jobs opportunity for more people.
y agradecería mucho que me
And it would be a big blessing if you guys can give me that opportunity.
compramos esa propiedad en octubre
We bought that property in October
y le hemos limpiado
and we have cleaned it,
y estamos muy contentos y expectantes de ver
and we're hoping to see it prosper
y por supuesto apoyar.
and of course help the city out.
Si tenemos un carro tenemos que pagar los taxes y queremos hacer.
And once, of course, do everything by laws. The more cars we sell, the more we pay taxes to the city and help the city out.
Y queremos hacerlo todo legalmente.
And we want to do everything legally.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
You're an excellent translator.
That's his son.
Absolutely. Very nice. Okay.
What is the church? What is the church that was purchased?
It was, we
Mercy
we
Church?
built the church. ¿Cuándo lo compró? We started building it in 2009, and we finished in 2011.
The Missionary Baptist.
El centro, la región de Central Arkansas, ellos son responsables por esta iglesia.
And at this moment, the Central Arkansas Baptist Missions, they're responsible for this church.
No, no es una iglesia independiente,
It's not an independent church.
es una iglesia que, de la cual damos cuenta de lo que hacemos.
It's a church where we report to other people as what we do.
You see the photos there of the church right on baseline, diagonal from. And then the house that he owns next door. Tries to help everybody. They feed, give food out, they do everything. Know that they don't really.
Solo un detalle,
One detail,
en la parte donde está la iglesia,
and the part where the church is at,
lo que había era una casa vieja que lo usaban para vender drogas.
where the church is located, before that, it was an old house that they sell drugs out of.
Y damos gracias a Dios que ahora es un lugar para adorar a Dios.
And now we praise God, it's a place where we can bring and come worship God.
La casa que ustedes ven a la par de las fotos
The house you see next to the pictures, or in the pictures,
era otra casa que era un completo junk.
it was another house that was completely trashed, basically.
Y dueños ofrecieron esa casa a nosotros.
And the owners offered that house to me,
Y la reparamos completamente
and we completely fixed it up.
y eso ahora da otra mejor vista, incluso frente del correo.
And now it gives it a better look to the city, even in front of the post office.
Cualquier cosa que está en nuestras manos,
Anything that's in our hands,
con la bendición de Dios, lo haremos mejor.
with the blessing of God, we can do it better. And if I may speak for my dad.
So what is the exact name of the church?
Iglesia
What is
Bautista El Faro. So that's in Spanish, but in English is the lighthouse. It's
what are
7002 Baseline Road, right there in front of the post office. Or diagonal too. If it's okay, I can speak for my dad for a few minutes. So I know that this is a new experience for us, and obviously we're trying to propose this small. Oh, are you guys going to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask one quick question. The church is not the subject property, right?
Correct.
So the church is in a different neighborhood altogether. Your comments about the church are to illustrate what a good job you'll do with this lot should it be rezoned.
That's
Is
correct.
that right? Okay.
I can speak to the Scott Hamilton south of 30 area from Double Quick up to the what I would consider highly developed area from the Exxon through the Red Roof End, through the electric area in the Sherman Wood. Concerns me from a commission standpoint is it seems like this whole Scott Hamilton Drive to Baseline needs to be more commercial, less residential. And that's my statement from it, and I'll be quiet now.
I just had one question for staff. You mentioned that there is a car dealership that's proximate to the Pulse property, but you mentioned that it's, I think, outside of
photos.
zoning or improperly zoned or not zoned properly.
It's non-conforming. It was
Non-conforming.
grandfathered in. It's on residential zone property,
Okay,
and it's been there for a number of years.
got it. Okay, okay.
Mr. Chair, was there a card?
No,
Submitted.
yeah, I don't have a card for this
Okay,
particular
that's-
item.
So, yeah, so my impression of this is, and I think Commissioner Vogler started to allude to this area is in transition. It's unlikely to be residential. Staff recommends, mainly because the curb cuts and stripping out is not a good idea. But I wonder aside from this application, at some point, this corridor needs another land use update. You know, it's just, all the conditions and uses are very transitional up and along there. Seems like didn't we approve a laundromat up there on Scott Hamilton, just north of that property? So it's, as a commissioner looking to the future, I do think we'll need to take a look at this corridor, future land use. But I agree with staff, curb cut right now might be a little bit arbitrary to do. The underlying zoning on this, Monty, is C3 or R? What is it?
The current zone is R2.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
But it's lane road, and there are developments less than half of a mile north. I don't know if C3 or C4 is the correct, zoning, but at some point, I think to Commissioner Berry's point, this area would do a lot better if it had development as opposed to dilapidated structures. And at some point, we gotta make a jump and a leap of faith to decide to allow somebody to come in there and do what they want to do to invest. I think there's still that unfortunate side that people buy things before they have the zoning. And if there's some way we could somehow help people, from making a mistake or getting into the process of buying land before it's zoned, that would be very beneficial. But from this commissioner's standpoint, I think this area is definitely due for opportunity, and hope that other commissioners vote the same way.
Okay, other commissioners, any comments?
I have a question. What is the process of amending a land use plan? Is it simply the planning commission that makes changes recommended by staff? Or does the land use plan have to then go to the city council?
Commissioner Mon, the process follows state law. Essentially, it is the duty of the planning commission to come up with a land use plan, and the staff that is assigned to them helps them do that. If the planning commission at any time wants to study a corridor, that can be requested by the planning commission, and then staff would go out and study the corridor and present changes to the commission for discussion, modification, And then once the land use plan is adopted by the planning commission, it is forwarded to the governing body, the board of directors, for approval, or they could send it back to the commission for reconsideration and have their comments on it. It could go back and forth a couple of times, but the final recommendation of ordinance would come from the planning commission. It would go to the city board for final action, and if approved, be implemented. And then that would give a base for us when we look at zoning in an area if it is complies with the approved land use plan.
And in this sense, the issue is that the property, the request is out of step with the existing land use plan.
That is one of the aspects. You're correct. That area, along with several areas, I believe, and Walter can correct me if I'm wrong, was annexed in. Is that the vote section that was annexed in by vote? But it was annexed into the city, large tracts, and in general, when property is annexed into the city, it comes in as R2, unless a tract owner decides that they want to come in as a different zoning, is another way that they can do. But this one come in just as the standard R2, which what happens, just like Monty explained, if a business is there operating at that time, it just becomes non-conforming use, so that any changes happens and they'd have to get rezoned. So this corridor, as other corridors, it is Scott Hamilton. So Commissioner Vogel had a point. It is widened. It is a connector. It also has connected, has bike routes on them. Share roads, I believe, at this time, just due to the width that we had, we couldn't make the widening fully. But also, please keep in mind, residential can still go on roadways as such. Layouts are preferred to be where they do not front the main roadway, that road comes off, and then the internal circulation of a subdivision, if somebody combines it, where essentially the back of the house or the rear yards face those roadways. We have roadways throughout the city, Napa Valley. We have roadways on Henson like that, where there still is residential developed on larger roadways. They are just not every residential tract along that roadway accesses the road.
Okay, any additional comments or questions?
I would move to take a vote to approve the rezoning against the staff's current recommendation. Did I word that correctly?
Did we do the land use plan and vote first?
Yes, I would say that we need to take two separate votes, land use plan first, then the zoning.
Okay, so item 9, we have
I'll
a
let
motion.
Commissioner Barry make the motions.
You're all right, Commissioner Vogel. I was doing parliamentary procedure.
I'm sorry, I'm confused about this. You just,
Well, your
staff
Robert's
just
rules
explained.
better than mine.
Pardon? Just one follow-up question. I'm confused here. If the process of establishing the land use plan requires what was just described, and I guess what I'm understanding is we have full power to amend the land use plan by a simple majority vote of the planning commission?
Yes, Commissioner Ron, that's what you're doing right now. That is at item 9.
Right.
So in this vote of to revise the land use plan, if approved, would go to the board of directors with recommendation of approval. And so they have to do the same process. They will vote for the two items, and it'll have to be the land use plan first, followed by the zoning.
So we're simply recommending to the board an amendment to the land use plan.
That is correct. That is the commission's role.
Got it.
Which is different than actually having a updated land use plan for the corridor.
Right. That's right. Okay, apology. Proceed.
I move for approval of the amendment to the land use plan item number 9, except that of staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Steph, if you would just kind of explain the vote to make sure we've got good clarity. In this case, staff is recommending denial. That is correct.
Correct.
Okay, but what we do have on the floor is a motion
Motion to approve.
to approve. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Commissioner Berry,
No.
Commissioner Benton,
On the fence.
Need a coin?
Come back to me.
come back to you. Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Vermon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
and Benton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
May I say something? I appreciate every single one of you. Commissioner Berry, you also, if you're looking for a good used car or need some work, Pastor
We're
George.
not finished just yet.
Oh,
I was gonna say, we got one more item, so you was talking too soon. Mr. Berry has a very nice car already. Okay, if we could, let's look at item number 9.1. Also, we'll need a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
The rezoning from R2 to C4 on Z9. Go ahead, Todd.
No, you were doing great. Go ahead.
Okay, seeking a motion on item 9.1, Z 9592.
Except that for staff recommendation of denial, which confuses everybody.
I think we've got a joint motion here. Here we have a second.
I can make an
We can-
official motion. I think I'd make a motion that on item number 9, we
9.1.
9.1, I'm sorry, we approve the rezoning from residential to C4, except for staff's recommendation of denial.
Okay, we've got an appropriate motion. How about a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. How about a roll call vote?
Commissioner Berry,
Aye.
Benton,
Yes.
Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Vermon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel. Commissioner Vogel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if we can get back on our regular
Yes.
agenda, which I think we're on going to item number 8.
Thank you
Thank you,
very,
everybody.
very
Very
much.
nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Item number 8, file number Z 9480A. This is an Integrated Site Solutions revised POD located at 218 North McKinley Street. On February 4th, 2020, the Board of Directors passed ordinance 21-834 rezoning this property from R2 to POD. The rezoning was approved to use the existing building as a professional therapist's office and counseling office. The existing structure is 1,383 square feet in area and 1 story in height. The approved POD included the following. Phase 1 would be construction of a new parking lot and driveway in the front yard area and the remodel of the existing structure to accommodate the office use. Phase 2 would be construction of a 24-foot by 33-foot addition to the rear of the structure. The sidewalk along North McKinley Street was deferred until Phase 2 construction. The building height for the Phase 2 addition was not discussed with the POD approval. The property owner recently began remodeling the existing building and construction of the Phase 2 addition. Construction of the Phase 2 building addition was increased from 24 feet by 33 feet to a footprint of 24 feet by 54 feet. The building also has a height of the building addition also has a height of 2 stories. A stop work order was issued to the property owner to cease construction of the building addition. This was because the building addition was had a larger building footprint than what was approved. The applicant was allowed to proceed with the remodeling of the existing structure and construction of the parking lot and driveway. The applicant now proposes to revise the previously approved POD zoning in order to construct a larger 2-story addition to the rear of the existing building. The building addition previously approved again was 24 feet by 33 feet. The previously approved addition had a rear setback of 10 feet and side setbacks of over 15 feet. Again, the height of the building addition was not discussed with the POD approval. However, the underlying R2 zoning allowed a maximum building height of 35 feet. The applicant is now proposing an addition to the rear of the building with an area of 24 feet by 54 feet. The proposed addition will maintain the 10-foot rear setback as was previously approved. The proposed building addition will be set back 7 feet 4 inches from the south property line and 24 feet 8 inches from the north side property line. The applicant is proposing that the revised addition be 2 stories in height. The proposed addition will be approximately 22 feet in height as measured from the finished floor to the midpoint of the roof slope. The overall height of the addition from finished floor to roof peak will be approximately 25 feet 5 inches. The larger building footprint for the proposed addition is the only change to the proposed previously approved POD zoning for this property. All other aspects and conditions of the previous approval shall remain in full effect. Staff is supportive of the requested revised POD to allow the larger 2-story building addition. Staff views the request as reasonable. As previously noted, the underlying R2 zoning does allow a building height of 35 feet as reasonable for the finish, as measured from the finished floor to the midpoint of the roof slope. Although the building addition will be located 10 feet from the rear or west property line, staff feels that planting mid-level evergreen trees between the building addition and the rear property line will aid in buffering the building and from the adjacent residences to the west. The underlying R2 zoning requires a minimum rear setback of 25 feet typically. Staff will also require that there be no exterior lighting on the building addition. Staff believes the revised POD to allow a larger building addition will have no adverse impact on the surrounding properties. Staff does recommend approval of the requested revised POD zoning subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the staff analysis and the staff analysis of the agenda staff report. Staff also recommends that mid-level evergreen trees be planted between the building addition and the rear property line, and that the building addition have no exterior lighting. The number and type of evergreen trees will need to be shown on the landscape plan for the development and approved by city staff.
Okay, do we have an applicant present for this item? See, are you the applicant? Yeah, if you could approach the podium, state your name.
He's not the applicant.
Or not the applicant?
No,
Okay, you're not the applicant?
I'm not the applicant.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, hearing not, I do have a card for Wendell E. Hall. Okay, Mr. Hall, if you want to approach the podium there, state your name and share with us your thoughts on this project.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak. I'm not a lawyer. I have no clout. I'm just a poor schnook that lives on the other side of my fence in my backyard. That suddenly I woke up one morning and my wife said, "Have you looked out the bedroom window?" No. I looked up and it's like, good Lord. There's a 2-story building in my backyard, over my backyard fence, that came as a complete shock to me. And I guess I am here neither
to oppose it.
Chair,
I
Chair,
suspect
I'd
it's a
hate to
done deal,
interject.
but I wanted to at least voice my concern.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can we proceed without the applicant being here? I'm
No,
not
that,
sure.
that was my interjection I was
Yeah.
about to say, so
Okay.
thank you very much, Commissioner Berry. If I may, let me repeat, just read the bylaws. It says applicant's attendance at the public hearing, and that is this hearing. The applicant on each item docketed shall be present or represented at the public hearing and prepared to discuss the request. If an applicant or designated representative is not present, the item shall be deferred one time to the next appropriate public hearing.
Okay. With re-notification procedures at the cost of the applicant.
Yes, with everything, so in their notifications again will have to be at their cost. So if the applicant is not present and we have called them out to be here, and we haven't signed anybody yet, then I would defer for the city attorney's office, but I believe we have to defer the item.
That's correct.
Does
Okay.
that require a motion for deferral?
I would put it on record.
Okay. I move for, under the bylaw direction, deferral of this item to the next regular hearing.
A second. Okay, and just a question, just to confirm that the applicant is indeed not on virtually.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Yeah,
that.
just want to make sure.
No virtual applicants, right?
Staff, I have a question real quickly
No.
as well. I can have my question answered after the vote, though.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to go ahead and vote to defer this item because the applicant is not present. Mr. Hall, what that means is that we'll defer this, and you're certainly welcome to come back next at our next meeting, but we won't be able to go forward with your concerns at this point.
Okay.
We do appreciate you coming.
I have a question. If he were here and I was not, it would still go forward this meeting though, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it would. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Apologize for.
interest.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we take a vote? I think we've got a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay.
Okay, vote.
Mr. Chair, you have a motion to defer. That deferral will be to August the 12th. Chairman, or Commissioner Berry,
Aye.
Benton,
Yes.
Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Vermon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel.
Yes.
Motion to defer carries.
Commissioner Vogel, I think you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. If this construction, which was halted, does not get our approval later or the city director's approval later, what will have to happen to the structure?
It will have to be removed to the last approved plan development.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item that we have on our regular agenda is item number 12.
Mr. Chairman, before I proceed with the presentation, can we ask if the applicant is here on this item? Be Mr. Orndorff, Mike Orndorff. Is anyone here representing Mr. Orndorff? Mr. Chairman, we have the same situation as last time.
Dear.
Yep, as before, Chair, all I say that we shall defer it.
Okay. If we can receive a motion for item 12 to defer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, again, this would be a deferral to August the 12th. Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Benton,
Yes.
Brooks, Hamilton,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Ramon,
Yes.
Thomas, Vickers,
Yes.
and Vogel.
Yes.
Motion to defer carries. And just a note, based on the green cards on item 8 and 12, I believe we do have some people in the audience on item 12 that wanted to speak. We will send a letter to those folks with the date, and we will have a different location for the next meeting. So we will send all that out to the people who filled out cards.
Thank you. Okay, I think that completes all the items on our regular agenda. Any additional items from commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, after discomfort a little bit with this, the zoning item on Scott Hamilton, I don't know what the pleasure is of the commission and staff for proposing a resolution or a motion to really update the land use plan in that corridor, if the commission so desires that. And I don't know if staff should write that up as a resolution or what's the proper procedure. I feel a great need for at least.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need for a resolution, Commissioner Berry. I think that it is just at the will of the commission.
Okay.
So if you make a proposal and take a vote, then that would direct staff to do the plan as requested.
Okay. I didn't know if the other commissioners want to discuss that, thought that was appropriate.
No, I think so too. I really felt like as we were hearing that proposal, I felt like, this is something that should have been done 15 years ago. Scott Hamilton hadn't changed much in the last 2 decades. This is something that had we done it 15 years ago, then we wouldn't have had that issue. I appreciate staff for doing what technically they really should have done, but it is so difficult as a commissioner to sit here and hear about a business owner who lives and works in the Scott Hamilton neighborhood, or just pick a neighborhood in Little Rock, and yeah, you feel like you can't approve that business, and so that's tough. So I would totally be in favor of a land use, something from staff to review from a land use perspective.
I'd like to make a motion that the staff be instructed to do a land use update on the corridor on Scott Hamilton between Baseline, and help me with the northern perimeter. I'm not sure it needs to go all the way to I-30, but that
I
might
believe
be.
it. I would say.
Yeah, 30 would be
Commissioner
best.
Berry, 30 is the good cutoff.
Okay.
Because north of that is industrial.
Okay, right.
And you're not changing the use along there.
know.
It's been industrial for the most part, so.
Okay. And that's my motion.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Get a vote.
I think we could go with just a voice vote on this one since it is not an.
Yeah, this is informal.
Yeah.
All right.
Good motion.
Aye.
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 Okay.
I think the ayes have it.
Okay.
Ayes have it. Thank you. We will get to work on that.
Okay, any other comments? All right, any citizens' comments? All right, hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.